bro, like, leave us alone. I've deleted that so many times.
Lisandro Martinez, I think, had one of his worst games in a United shirt. Got absolutely done.
He got spun
for the gross goal.
It doesn't feel like Liverpool should be 16 games unbeaten, but they're doing it. Hello and welcome back to Monday Vibes. Good afternoon, everyone. We're back to round up the latest talking points from the Premier League, and what a weekend it was. But before we get into that, let's reintroduce you to our guest. We've got Sam Abaski back from holiday.
Thank you very much.
Oba, how was it?
It was amazing. One of the best holidays I've ever had. But I can't lie, actually.
Thailand? It was Thailand?
It was Thailand. If I suggest everyone goes there. It is long to get there, but when you get there, the hospitality, the food, the views, yeah, man, incredible.
It looked like you went to the floating islands, is it called that?
Yeah.
That
So we
beautiful.
did island hopping. Like, it's just, everyone's so nice. Like, I did see a baby shark though, and I literally almost drowned, bro. Like,
What? Basically, seeing the shark?
Yeah. So they do like scuba diving and all that stuff, yeah. And then as I went down, I just saw one thing just moving mad fast. I started panicking, bro. They had to get everyone out of the water. But obviously they're not dangerous, but I thought it was.
I'm with you though. Sharks for me, my biggest fear, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not on it.
By distance, then heights. But anyway,
Really? You're scared of heights?
I hate heights. Can't handle them
You
whatsoever.
don't go Fort Park in that?
Sorry?
You don't go Fort Park?
Thought Park, no. Roller coasters wouldn't like it. No. I struggle up here, to be honest.
Yeah,
The little balcony up here.
I find this scarier than like. I'm quite scared of heights, but I don't mind as long as I'm strapped in.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't like
up
the
here-
thrill though?
Oh yeah, I like the thrill. I do like the thrill. I've gone skydiving. I've done a tandem
you?
skydive, but I trust, like, you know, I trust a professional to like do that for me. But like, if I'm walking over like a flyover over the motorway, I get jelly legs.
Really?
Yeah. Like even
I'm
here,
just
this is a bit
imagine
like,
that, Mike. Like, whoa.
yeah. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Well, Mikey, hopefully there's no jelly legs, but we are going to be discussing
there were jelly
a
legs
bit of a
in this
horrific
game.
experience for you at the weekend. There's no Joe
Good
Tomlinson.
segue.
He is playing golf with Zach, I believe. But we do have a Man United.
Always avoids it, doesn't he?
Always avoids it. Suspicious. But we do have a Man United fan to try and make sense of what we saw. I mean, McCubbs, another really difficult day at the office for Man United and Ten Hag.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there were many United fans who wouldn't have seen this coming. I know United have had a great home record over the last year under Ten Hag. Brighton were the last team to beat them at Old Trafford up until Saturday. But, you know, United came into this game in pretty poor form, and Brighton came into it in pretty great form. I know they had that defeat to West Ham, but they were coming off that 3-0 win over Newcastle. Evan Ferguson not even starting in this game. And I think they made 6 changes actually from that Newcastle game. But this Brighton side just are able to adapt seamlessly game by game. De Zerbi's just got such a robust system in place at the club. Mitoma, I thought, was excellent once again. Pascal Gross has an amazing record against Man United. Really well taken first goal from Danny Welbeck as well. You know, he's also got a great history of scoring big goals against United too. So yeah, and so I'm not overly surprised that we lost the game. But it just, all the symptoms of United's problems were there. I think the thing is with United, they could have scored 2 or 3 in the first half. You know, Rashford didn't really take his chances, although I thought he had a really positive first half. It's just defensively, United are just all over the place at the moment. You know, even, you know, in that opening win against Wolves, where United probably should have lost, the defence was pretty shoddy. Against Nottingham Forest as well, like there just doesn't seem to be a good enough communication between the midfield and the defence, and I think the back line in general. I think United do really miss Varane there. Obviously Shaw's been out for a little while now as well. Reguilon getting his first start against Brighton, like it's just an unsettled back line. And Lisandro Martinez, I think, had one of his worst games in a United shirt. Got absolutely done.
He got spun
for the gross goal. He was caught out of position a lot. And yeah, like I think that there was probably part of it was probably to do with the fact that Reguilon was pushing forward quite a lot, and there was quite a lot of space to cover. But also, like I think, Martinez is the best player in that back line, and when he has a bad day, then it's tough to mitigate against that. So yeah, I just think United's back line is really, really poor at the moment, and you know, United are dealing with injuries and situations with players in a number of positions, like, Sancho has been frozen out. Anthony, we don't know if he'll come back or when he'll come back. So that right-hand side is just so thin. Yeah, and I think it just goes to show the fact that, Ten Hag played that system, which I think, if that team played a diamond for the next 4 weeks, I'm sure United would start getting results out of it, because I think a front two of Rashford and Højlund's actually quite tasty. I quite like that. I think that suits Højlund in some ways.
Rashford needs to feed him a little bit more, though. Don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, well, he did. I mean, he did. That there was that. Højlund's goal that got disallowed.
I feel like Rashford. Yeah, I think he's a quality player. And I don't think I didn't notice it as much until you see all these narratives that come around in football and stuff, yeah. But he is a player that obviously he's always focusing on mainly goals. But I have seen situations that he gets into where he can feed his striker sooner, and I think there was an opportunity. I think obviously he did get the assist to the disallowed goal, but there was an opportunity where he hit the side netting where he could have tried to find Højlund. And I think there was a clip online where the exact situation at Atlanta where Højlund was found in that situation, pointing to the area, and it's like, for a new player coming in, and his qualities, he's young, he's playing his first game at Old Trafford, wouldn't you want to give him that opportunity or just feed him? Because I think Rashford's so good at beating his man, but his decision making in terms of finding the final pass in the final third, I don't think it's as good as it could be.
He's not a creator. He's just not a creator, though, is he? I think that's the thing. He just has that goal scoring instinct, and I'm sure they'll develop a better relationship as things go on. But yeah, I don't mind that as a front two in a situation like this. But I just think Amrabat's out, Mount's out. If either of them are in, then there's the possibility of playing a 4-2-3-1 and having Bruno on the right. And I think Bruno has played absolutely fine on the right before. It's not ideal because he's not much of a dribbler, he's not much of a winger, but at least you get that creative you get that creative output from the right, and then you have someone in the centre who is also fairly creative, whether that be Eriksen, whether that be Mason Mount. So yeah, I think Ten Hag, in terms of injuries, in terms of things away from the field, has had a bad hand at the start of the season. But 3 losses from the first 5. That's the first time that's happened in the Premier League era for United. Brighton have now beaten United 4 times in a row. Only 2 Premier League clubs have done that, which was Man City about 10 years ago, kind of in the Mancini days, and I think Liverpool in the 90s. So De Zerbi, or Brighton in general, sorry, because a couple of those losses came under Graham Potter, but yeah, Brighton have just had United's number recently. So yeah, I wasn't overly surprised. Changing the guard, exactly.
It's crazy.
But but we do need to talk about Brighton as well, because I think we were talking about it on Sunday Vibes, weren't we? Are they? Joe was saying, do you see them as Champions League, top 4 contenders? It's like, well, yeah, they clearly are top 4 contenders. If Brighton were called Newcastle United, we'd be like, yeah, they are serious contenders for the top 4. I think it's just because they're a smaller club with nowhere near as much history that people are still tentative, because they kind of think that history counts against them, when in actual fact, if anything, it's an advantage. They've got no pressure, really. They've got a great manager and a great group of players.
And their depth is really good now as well.
Good, yeah. Mahmoud Dahoud was playing in an advanced midfield position
on
Saturday.
Tarek Lamptey
that's what I think is crazy.
Lamptey was brilliant, by the way.
Because like he said, you put Brighton in the conversation of top 4, but I don't even know if it's too extreme to say they're going for everything, bro. Saying they're going for the title might be extreme, but
we say Brighton.
But in terms of how they play, how De Zerbi, what he wants for the team, how he wants them to challenge for all these trophies, the fact that they can make 6 changes and still dominate United at Old Trafford and look very comfy. There's no reason to say that they've looked like probably the most comfortable team this season, even compared to
aside from City,
closest
Arsenal,
to their
Spurs,
peak level,
example,
I think.
They just look so comfortable, regardless of injuries, regardless of new signings or players leaving late or late injuries. Ferguson scoring a hat trick and then not playing. They just look too comfy.
I think that's the thing with Brighton as well. And you raise a good point there. It's almost every team in the league, we say this season, almost all the big teams, we're like, okay, Ange Postecoglou's in at Spurs, they've got new signings and whatnot, they're in transition. even Man United, they've brought Onana in, they got Højlund up top, like they're still they're still kind of feeling their way with some new players and trying to play. Liverpool, their midfield's in transition. It's like Brighton sold like 150 million pounds worth of midfielders in the summer. And we're not talking about them as if they're in transition. We're talking about them as if they're a very settled team.
It's crazy.
So yeah, I think that is just testament to what De Zerbi's doing. And like, yeah, all the underlying numbers have Brighton second or first pretty much in the league. So yeah, like I think, like they're definitely top 4 contenders. And actually, yeah, like you saying that they're title contenders potentially isn't even that mad. Like, but back to United, I think there's just a number of areas where Ten Hag needs to improve this team.
Would you say he's in trouble? Would you say like
nah?
Because
there was booze.
The fans.
I was going to ask you about that, Obba. Were you surprised by that, Obba?
I think so. I think I've always praised Ten Hag for what he done last season, like getting third place, winning the Carabao Cup, like getting rid of Cristiano Ronaldo, dealing with like situations around the club really well. Yeah, but then I think this season he had like a different task where you're in from the start, where you're going to make your summer signings. People question whether Mount was the right signing. Obviously, Højlund is a profile that he wanted as well. Onana is a great goalkeeper. But I think now where you've not seen it work too tough, obviously it was the first few games now Mount's injured and they've got Amrabat in and they've got Dalot in as well. Not Dalot, Reguilon in as well. I think he's going to have more pressure on him in the next few games now than ever before. Like I think losing to Brighton isn't like an anomaly. Like you can lose to Brighton because they're that good. But I think it's how he deals with it, because all the situations that he has with players, like, I think he's dealt with the Sancho thing quite calm. I think a lot of people have said that he shouldn't have been so open around what was going on with Sancho and why he didn't make the team. I think that if you're not training well and your manager wants more from you and he's definitely giving you grace in the years that you've been here, then that's a fine way to deal with it. But when the people that you're replacing is that a CM has to go right wing, and then the void that he leaves in the middle, you can clearly see it, and then like there's just so much noise around United. I feel sorry for him, to be fair, because you look at where they finished and what they wanted to achieve this year, and I thought that their window was calm, like I said, but it just looks like it's just nothing has clicked. Like, and now they're back with the same team with Onana in goal. He looks like people are getting onto him because of his shot stopping. I think he's been fine. Like I think maybe he could save a few, but he's also saved some that looked quite difficult. Højlund looks like he's going to be calm. Mount will probably get into it as well, but I think it's just. There's just something. There's an energy around United that just isn't right at all.
I'd say as well they have had some very difficult games. Brighton, Spurs, Arsenal, but it's even in the games that they have won or done better in. Nottingham Forest, Wolves. Like they could have lost both those games as well. It could have been even worse. And I just feel like whenever I watch United at the moment, and I've kind of felt this over the last 10 years consistently, there's very few games that I watch United and just feel like that was a comfortable win. There's always some like jeopardy in it. There's never that much control, and I think that is just a sign of United just not quite being the team that we would expect them to be at this point. And yes, they do have a lot of injuries, and we'll talk about that with Chelsea coming up as well. But it's just never comprehensive.
Well, it's just what happens when you have a team or a club that hasn't had a consistent transfer policy over the course of 3 or 4 years. Like United's transfer policy just has not been consistent. Even though Ten Hag got a lot of even though a lot of the signings last year turned out to be the right signings, at least for there and then. The club went into this summer again with Ten Hag as pretty much the main influence on transfers, and I just don't think he's. And that's not to say that the Højlund transfer isn't good. That's not to say that the Onana transfer isn't good. But like, you can't rely on that forever with a manager who has very little prior experience. I know at Utrecht, I think he had quite a lot of control, but Ajax he didn't necessarily.
Part of a structure.
Yeah, part of a structure, and that was where and it was his work at Ajax that got him the United job. Like, I think there will always be problems, and I'm not just putting this on Ten Hag, but like it's just symptomatic of United's transfer policy over the last 10 years. That the club is in a position like it is at this moment in time, but then at the same time there are a lot of injuries. Ten Hag could have played Pellistri on the weekend. He could have. Like, if he wanted more width,
what are we changing?
Pellistri.
What do we get to get out of this malaise? If you're Eric Ten Hag, what are you changing, Obba?
I think it's difficult, but I think Pellistri definitely deserves a shout to start. I think get Bruno back in the middle. I do think that Eriksen needs to play. I don't know how they make it work because obviously in terms of legs, that he's not the best presser, and he's obviously
defensively just isn't there.
Defensively, he's not there. But what you said in terms of the type of United side that you've seen for the last 10 years, in terms of not really being convincing, the times where they have looked convincing or have had control is when Eriksen's playing. Like they need a controller. Casemiro's not going to do that. Bruno's not going to do that. Mount's not going to do that. Amrabat, maybe he can be that player, but in terms of now and what they're dealing with, I think Eriksen has to start, and he has to be that player where you build. It's crazy to say you build a team around him, but you need control in the game. All the games that we've seen from United this season, they've had barely any control, and I think that's what they're lacking. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of changes. We've got Eriksen potentially coming in. We've got Palestri. Was Reguilon the right decision at left back? McCubbs. Would you play Dallo there and keep Wan-Bissaka in the team? I mean.
I don't know.
It's very few options really with this amount of injuries.
I think you play Reguilon on the left, and
he looked alright.
I would have Wan-Bissaka over Dallo. I think Eriksen does, is in that team anyway. But I think once Amrabat's back, I think you do give him a run, because I think Amrabat isn't like a defence splitting passer in the same way as Eriksen, but he does offer control and he's more defensively sound. I'd happily have Eriksen playing further up for sure.
Just feels like none of your new signings have really been given the best chance to succeed, because Onana's playing behind a defence that has lost probably its two best defenders. Well, Martinez was brilliant in that, on current form, Martinez probably isn't there, but Varane and Shaw have been excellent for a number of years. In midfield, Mount's got injured, Amrabat's arrived with an injury, Højlund came with an injury. You haven't really been able to build any momentum yet. Luckily, you do actually have quite a good run of fixtures, I think, coming up as well. I think your next games, aside from Bayern this week, just get through that, whatever. It's pretty much right.
Either, though.
I think they're susceptible, but, there's very few United players that get anywhere close to this Bayern starting 11. So on paper, it's a Bayern win. But Burnley away next, then Palace at home in the EFL Cup, then Palace at home in the league. So double Palace. So we will see what happens there. But that's our take on Man United so far. Stay patient, Man United fans. I think we're not saying it's a total disaster, but pressure is building. It can be, though,
because if the fans are turning on them already and it's only a few games in, there's not really an identity, it could get toxic.
I did think it was a strange decision to boo Ten Hag over subbing a player that's just come back from injury. Didn't make a lot of sense, but I think that just shows the desperation.
Yeah, it shows how well he played as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Credit to Højlund, he has looked very promising. Right, let's move on to Wolves versus Liverpool. This was the first of many comebacks that we'll be talking about today. It really was the weekend of comebacks. City came back, Liverpool, Aston Villa, Spurs. But let's talk Liverpool, because they didn't start well in this game against Wolves at all. But again, they get the job done, and it's now 16 games unbeaten out of nowhere.
It was inevitable. I think when I was watching that game, everyone that was watching that game, you see the Wolves, they're not taking their chances. You know that Liverpool have Darwin Núñez and Diaz to come on off the bench. You know that the game's going to change at one point. And the second half was like the perfect example of that. He made a few changes, and they just looked in control. They were creating chances. Salah was literally being that creator for Liverpool, which I think he's become more of that in recent times, where when it was Salah, Firmino and Mane, you're thinking, he just wants to score goals. But now he just seems like, okay, let's just get the win. If that player's in a better position, you saw for Robertson's goal, brilliant pass for that goal.
Great finish from Robertson as well.
Yeah, man, I think Liverpool are in a very good position in terms of their front line. I still think that defensively they still look a bit shaky.
Joel Matip's had a bad last 13 months.
I just don't think he's up to it anymore. I don't think he's the player that. Obviously, he's always been scarred with injuries and stuff, but I think now we're seeing him come to the end of his career. So if Konate and Van Dijk aren't available, I think they're definitely going to struggle.
I think Konate is their most important defender. I think most Liverpool fans are usually quite worried when he's not on the pitch. He's a great defender, but just his physical attributes are just a cut above anyone else in that back line. I think they'll always be susceptible. But this is the thing: with Liverpool's attack, they can get out of those situations. They can just outscore opposition.
I was surprised that he went with McAllister as the holding player again and Endo on the bench. I'm not sure whether that was because Endo maybe played more minutes in the international break than McAllister, but that seemed like a slightly strange decision and did leave them slightly susceptible.
Did Szoboszlai go there when McAllister came off though?
Yeah, he then dropped into a double pivot.
He looked very comfortable in that position.
Yeah.
Like, I think that might be something that Klopp does if he is trying to like almost eye out how good Eno can be, because the Premier League is quite demanding. But I think Szoboszlai, he's just been a revelation.
He's brilliant.
He's been so good. And I think when you look at the players that they brought on in like Harvey Elliott, who came on and he made a significant change in their team, I think they've just got really good forward players. So I don't think they're ever going to be in like significant issues. Like Klopp's always going to have a plan B, and the plan B is always going to be good.
Yeah, it reminds me of United in the late 90s with so many like forward options. Liverpool. Yeah, look like they're going to finish games really strongly this year. I think they've already scored a crazy amount of late winners and late goals. I mean, they've come back for the third time in 5 matches now. But speaking of runs, though, Man United have a favourable run. Liverpool's next few games: West Ham at home, Spurs away, Brighton away, and then the Merseyside derby. And they did, I mean, we'll talk more specifically maybe about a Wolves player, because it is nice to give credit to the losing sides occasionally. I thought Pedro Neto looked brilliant.
Incredible.
He's back to his best, isn't he? He's been really, really good the opening few weeks. What was it, 2019-20, when he was only around 20, 21 years old, and he looked like one of the 3-4 best young players in the league. Obviously, injuries have been so unkind to him, but it's just great to see that he has like regained full confidence. And yeah, I think Wolves under O'Neill look fine, really. Like, you know, they should have been 2-0 up against Liverpool in that first half.
Couldn't you miss?
Yeah, like
He jumped so early.
Yeah.
He jumped so early. But even at that, I still think he could have got enough contact on it to get it.
But he was about 2 foot above the ball. I don't know did he think it was going to be like a floater or something?
I don't know. But Joe Gomez was struggling with Neto. Neto was like, I think he's definitely going to be the next Wolves player where we're saying, okay, he's going to be linked with Liverpool and Arsenal, because I think in full form he's probably one of the best like direct wingers in the league. So
yeah, definitely
exciting.
Joe Gomez used to be able to cover at right back quite effectively, but in the last 13 months or so he's actually played okay when he's been at centre back. But I think at right back, I remember that horrible game he had against Vinicius Junior in the Champions League. Admittedly, that is Vinicius Junior, but Pedro Neto also making him look a little bit silly as well. Yeah, but I can't believe it. It doesn't feel like Liverpool should be 16 games unbeaten, but they're doing it, and I think they've won 11 of those as well. So getting the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Liverpool are. Yeah, they should be, you know, one of the favourites for top 4 this year. I think like they've probably got the best. They've definitely got the most well-stocked attack aside from Man City. Like, Jurgen Klopp is their manager. I think it's easy to look past the fact that they've still got one of the best tacticians in the game, who can change things up like he did against Wolves, and he has such a plethora of great options. I think, like, you know, also just like stuff like, you know, the feeling around Darwin Núñez is just much more positive this year than last year. Like, he was under an insane amount of pressure last year, like having a lot asked from him, at least from like kind of pundits and the fans and everything, because of that price tag. Now it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter that he's being brought off the bench. Like he's serving a very important function in that side, and he can change a game. Especially against tarred defence, and yeah, I think crucially as well, like most of their players are fit in the forward line at least.
And I think if
you've just got so many options.
If this is I was going to say, if this is Liverpool playing bad, then once they get going, and it might be in this run, because sometimes when you play against better opposition, you have to like rise to it. But yeah, if this is them playing bad and not really like having like a solid midfield or confident midfield, then yeah, I think they could just... Yeah.
Just quickly before we move on, Albert, if you were Pep Guardiola right now, who would you be most worried about, Arsenal or Liverpool?
Oh, I would say... it's tough. I think it has to be Arsenal, because the type of football... Actually, I don't know. I think the game against Liverpool, they would definitely be able to control it better. But I think they will struggle against Arsenal, because now with Odegaard and Rice and Vieira coming in and having those type of players, like, I think they will be in danger of being more uncomfortable. I think Arsenal will make them more uncomfortable, but I think Liverpool obviously have the danger of their forwards. But if they don't have the ball, which City will probably do to them, then I think they'll be fine. I think that was like a fence-sitting question answer.
No.
I think in some ways, if it's just Man City, you know, in a singular
a one-off game.
I think Liverpool. Yeah, I would be more scared of Liverpool from Man City.
They'll dominate that midfield, though.
Yeah, for sure. But then, like, Liverpool can still hurt you in other ways. I think. But But I think over the course of a season, I think Arsenal
Arsenal have better depth, don't they?
Arsenal are still their biggest challengers. I think it's not even necessarily about depth per se. I think it's more just the fact that Arsenal are stronger across the pitch. Like Arsenal's defence is just better. They've got two really good goalkeepers vying for a place now. I just think Arsenal have a more coherent. They're just more coherent across the pitch, whereas Liverpool still have those defensive issues.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, let's move on to Arsenal's North London rivals Spurs, who beat Sheffield United 2-1. Crazy comeback this. So the goals were in the 98th minute and what would it be, the 100th minute as well, from Dejan Kulusevski scoring the winner. I mean, but this was brilliant. Spurs fully deserve probably to get something from this game, but I mean, fair play to Sheffield United for being so resolute for so long. I think Wes Foderingham had another brilliant game. I think he made 8 saves. But this was really about Richarlison after a really difficult period as well.
Yeah, and I you can't not love stories like that to a certain extent. Like, obviously they're rivals and stuff like that, but at the same time, when you see players going through things and they're being open about how it's impacting them, you know, like, I think international duty, he played one game and then he wasn't picked for the next game, and he came out and said that he needs to go and see someone because it's affecting him. But for him to come back into the game, getting a goal and assist in the last few minutes, like, that as people are getting onto Spurs for celebrating the way they did, and it's just like, what sport are you watching?
Yeah.
Like,
if you can't enjoy that,
if you can't enjoy a last minute comeback against any team regardless of the opposition, then what are you a fan for? Like, do you know what I mean? Especially, like you said, seeing Richarlison, a player that's been struggling, Spurs fans are saying, oh, he shouldn't be starting. Now they're going to be a little bit more confident in him, and he's going to be confident in himself. And I think Postecoglou's done wonders with this Spurs side, not even just on the pitch, but just made them more likeable, bro. Like, because I've not liked Spurs for time, but now you can't not like them to a certain extent. Udogi is quality, you know. Maddison is a great creator. Son, you can't really not like him. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he's done so well with the tools that he was given. Yeah,
absolutely. I think Mickey van der Ven and Romero as well is a great centre-back pairing as well. Quality. I think van der Ven has gone under the radar for how solid he's been so far. Really, really impressive. But McCubs, I mean, there was other great performers in this game. Basuma had another stormer. Yeah. What a season he's having.
Yeah, Basuma's been great. I think, like I was saying, I think Postecoglou's ability to get this team singing so quickly, we've spoken about it a lot. But yeah, and I think weirdly as well, like when we came into the season, I think there were worries about Spurs' forward line, right? You know, Richarlison being the only real recognised centre forward, Manuel Solomon being the only other kind of the only
depth
other
winger,
proper depth option brought in. And he did, to be fair, look pretty good for Fulham last year. Maddison, you know, there were very few doubts about Maddison, although I did panic on Team Talk and say he was going to
that was a priceless moment.
That was pure panic. But yeah, there were a lot of question marks about the Spurs forward line, especially the fact that Son had such a drastic drop-off last year. And even if he has a drastic drop-off this year, I still, even if he stays in that kind of form this year, I still back him to get a few hat-tricks along the way. He sometimes does have a knack for just pulling out a hat-trick from nowhere. But no, I mean, Son has looked better, and especially looked better playing centre forward against Burnley 2 weeks ago. But I think, basically, the fact that Postecoglou's already used Son through the middle when he's not fancied Richarlison, or when Richarlison hasn't been available, and Manuel Solomon's looks really good on the left, and the fact he was able to bring Richarlison on late and he was able to change the game there, and the fact that we got Kulusevski's back on the score sheet as well and looking confident, like suddenly it's like, oh, actually no, that Spurs forward line
looks alright.
Yeah, it does look good. Like it's enough depth for now.
Brennan Johnson in the mix as well.
Yeah, Brennan Johnson coming on and just very tight actually, that offside in the end.
That was a good goal.
So yeah, really really well taken goal. I actually completely forgot about Brennan Johnson as well. Yeah, they've got good depth there, and we'll see what happens with Brennan Johnson. I don't know whether he's like the perfect signing for them, like just because I've not seen him play in a non-counter-attacking system before. So like that's just me really. I don't know. But like you still trust Postecoglou to you get something out of him, and yeah, sure, he will definitely be an asset to them late on in games, and maybe that's the thing. We talk about, like Arteta was talking about after the Arsenal game about like him wanting to change, thinking about changing the keeper like on 65 minutes and on 80 minutes, and we were discussing off camera how that's kind of a bit of a taboo thing to take off a keeper, but you have 5 substitutions to make now. And this is the way I think that the game will go. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone's going to be swapping goalkeepers, but in terms of like having players like someone like Brennan Johnson, who may not actually really have much of a role to play from the start, at least in the first half of this season, but in the final 15 minutes, the likelihood is that
long games
longer games. Like the likelihood is that managers are going to be able to, with 15 minutes to go, probably still have 2 subs to make, like comfortably.
Favours the bigger squads.
It favours the bigger squads for sure. But I think especially when it comes to attackers, like if you have like a roster like Liverpool have, that is a much bigger advantage now than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
So. I'm not saying that like Tottenham's attack is on the level of Liverpool's, but like it's being used really, really well. I've loved the way that Adoji's started the season as well. Like he's been great. I think that's one of the really heartening things actually from a Spurs perspective, is that there were a lot of question marks about whether him and Porro were going to be able to play as fullbacks rather than as wingbacks, but they've looked really, really comfortable. There seems to be a really good understanding between the two of them. And just on the ball, Adoji looks great. Like it's not like he's having to fly down the wing constantly. It's like just on the ball, just carrying the ball upfield. He just looks really, really calm. This Spurs side is good. I think also we shouldn't put too much pressure on it, because it's like I think Spurs have started the season better than people would have expected.
Man. This is too much, man. We need to start saying, we need to start making claims. They start feeling it.
I think Spurs like I think a successful season for Spurs would still be top 6. Like I don't think they have to. There has to be too much pressure on them.
Where do you think they'll finish quickly?
I think 5th or 6th.
5th or 6th?
5th or 6th. Yeah.
Oba, different question to you. Are they not favourites, but have they got a good chance in the North London derby next up?
Yeah, they do. I think they do, and I think more than ever in the last few years as well. I think the way Spurs are playing now, like they've got a clear identity. They know their strengths. They know to a certain extent their weaknesses. They've adapted during games where they've not started well. He has a clear like starting lineup as well. Like I think he's in a really good position, and the fans are going to be on it. Before, like Spurs fans will go into North London derbies in the last few years and be like, we just don't want to get smashed. Like we don't want it to be a disgrace. But now they're going to win. Think that they can get a result, and they have reason to think that. So yeah, I think they can go into that with their heads.
Where is it? Is that at Arsenal?
It's at Arsenal.
It's at Arsenal. Okay, yeah. If it was at Spurs, then I would be confident.
I feel like off the top of my head, the home teams tend to win these recently.
They do.
Waiting for George to react behind the camera. He's not looking. North London derby, home team tends to win. Okay, George says they beat them away last year as well.
Yeah. But then the year before, there was that famous one the year before where Spurs won it.
No Harry Kane, though, who loved the North London derby.
He did.
They'll find a new hero, man.
Richarlison.
Yeah.
This is the perfect time for Richarlison to come into scoring form, because
you score in the North London derby.
Absolutely loves a derby.
Narrative change.
Liverpool fans still absolutely despise Richarlison. Probably like the most up for it player I've seen in a derby in recent years in the Premier League. So start Richarlison. We'll get a brace at the Emirates. Lovely
George
stuff.
quaking in his boots. Right. Let's move on to West Ham Man City. Not Man City's best performance, Oba, but to still score 3 goals away from home. I mean, Haaland had a rare off day, really.
Yeah, but he's off day. He's still going to score goals.
Still getting
and
goals.
then he will celebrate. He will celebrate now. It's like, finally.
Yeah,
like,
you can tell the relief.
He's done that for the last few games now, and it's like, it's just so crazy that they're just so good. Like they're a level above everyone else. Like they've got players like Doku coming in, and I thought that he was going to be the player that have a few months where he's coming last 20 minutes and then we'll see like what he can do. No, he's been trusted from the start for the last few games, and this game he looked electric.
His
like
finish is so good.
His finish was quality, but it's the fact that you could tell he's playing with the freedom that a lot of people thought that Pep didn't give his wingers. Like a lot of people genuinely think, okay, as soon as you step into Pep's system, he's gonna want you to retain the ball and he's gonna want you to keep it as much as possible. And Pep was like, no, like I know your strengths, and your strengths is taking on a player. So taking on a player, if you lose it, we've got Rodri behind you, we've got Bernardo behind you, these guys, we've got Kovacic, these men are going to win the ball back. And I think he's so confident now in his system and how good his defense is. I think a few years ago where Cancelo and Zinchenko, maybe he'll be like, all right guys, we need to keep the ball because if they counter, we're in trouble. But the defense now is so robust and so defensively just strong. He doesn't have to think about if we lose the ball or if there's a 2-on-1, because more time in those situations his defenders will be fine. So yes, it's interesting to see this new phase of City where they want direct wingers, they're feeding it straight to a striker. Like I
think it's more fun in many ways. I know like City teams in the past have been more aesthetically pleasing, but I thought Doku's goal was brilliant. And
the celebration.
Whatever it's, I can't remember the name of it. I was gonna get up and do it. Who did it? Did you do it, Dukes, on a show recently, or like
no,
the last
I don't think
year?
I done
Maybe you just done it.
I'm more of a worm guy.
Yeah, true.
He loves the worm.
We'll get you doing it on table. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just think as well, like another really good signing. Like people were talking about. I think he'd mainly played on the left for Belgium, hadn't he, Doku? But had mainly at Rennes was mainly used as a right winger. But it's like, Pep now has that advantage on both wings, where he's got a guy who has mainly played as a right winger during his career, but he's right-footed, so he can play as an inverted left winger and score goals like that.
Took it so early as well.
Yeah, so nice.
Beautiful.
Also,
I think he gave away the ball in the build-up to their goal as well, and you could tell he was quite gutted. So to instantly respond like that, I think it was like the first minute after the half time. It was just a crazy good response. I love seeing it. It was interesting seeing Pep. We were talking a little bit about playing to his strengths. Pep was actually, I saw a really interesting quote from him this week about Matheus Nunes saying, look, he's not complete in terms of like his ball retention and that sort of thing, but he does have, game-changing abilities in terms of his dribbling, and that's what I want to work on. Yeah. And if we can build up the rest of his game, we've got a complete footballer. And it feels like Doku's similar sort of thing. Like this is an elite dribbler, probably the best, or one of the best dribblers in Europe, along with like Vinicius Junior probably.
Yeah, and I like that about Pep. Like I feel like, obviously you like to see managers evolve and stuff, but I think now more than ever, there's not really like ready-made players that have stayed in Europe. Let's say like senior players as well. Like a lot of them went to Saudi. Like the players that you'd say, they've got years behind them, they'll come into this team and be game changers. When we saw them linked with Paqueta and other midfielders, you'll be thinking Eze, like obviously these are good players. Like Eze especially, I think he'll be quality for a side like City, but they're not the type of players you normally think Pep would go for. So the fact that he went with Doku and Nunes, who like a bit like raw, they've got raw abilities, but he's still doing that like father figure-ish where he's like, you know what, your first touch ain't good enough, but we'll work on that. And a lot of people think that that's like harsh, but when his first touch in the next few games are on point, you're gonna say, look, like that's why he's doing it. So
also keeps him interested as well, Pep. I think getting in these new players, like over the last few years, Gvardiol, Haaland, like really young players that have huge upside. And Gvardiol and Haaland are probably in a different stratosphere to Nunes and Doku at the moment, but they're still basically project players.
Yeah, but I think that is like that's how you stay motivated, right? As a manager, like 2 years ago, Pep I think said that when his contract was up at Man City in 2023 that he would leave, and then he renewed his contract. Obviously he won he's won everything that he needs to win at Man City, and I think I remember when he won that first treble at Barcelona in 2009, obviously his first year in top level management. I think he said like his overriding feeling straight after that final was one of like emptiness, and like because he just had no idea what to do next. Really? He was like, I've already done it all now. Wow. Like, how do I like keep things interesting? Like how like what's the next thing?
What's the challenge?
What's the next thing? And I think with Man City now, especially after signing Haaland last year and then going on to win the treble, it's like Pep has to set himself new challenges and also you refresh the squad to do that as well, don't you? You have to because I think if Pep had just stayed, if City was still playing the same football that they were 3-4 years ago now, then it probably would. I mean, it has become stagnant at points. Actually, you remember that 2020-21 season.
That great.
Yeah, it does become stagnant at points. And then it's very rare that it happens, but there has been a couple of times when it's happened where questions have arisen over. Is Pep like
City boring?
Has Pep like lost his edge essentially? And no, like Pep's got his edge again because he's signed a player like Haaland last year and managed to adapt the team around him. Has a player like Julian Alvarez. He's playing with two centre forwards essentially now. I know Julian Alvarez doesn't play a centre forward role, but De Bruyne's loss has not been felt at all. And I know he's compensated for De Bruyne's loss in the past, particularly his use of Sterling years gone by. So yeah, I think a signing like Doku it's a sign of where the City team is going. And yeah, I think it would be really exciting to see them play with more. I guess have wingers who play with more freedom. And I think Pep said that himself. He's like, I think he said after the game, he's like, he's a happy. He was like, he's a winger. He's a proper winger. Like
he looks so happy he talking about that as well.
Absolutely. And speaking of the new dogs, there's also some old dogs pulling up new tricks as well. Bernardo Silva had a great game as well. Feels like in the City side, you can kind of rely on one of Foden, Alvarez, Bernardo Silva, of course Haaland to contribute. So they're in a great spot. They're in a really, really good spot. Right, let's move on.
Prowse though, second goal of the season.
He's
got
played
5 goal involvements now in 4 games.
Crazy.
Yeah, great signing for West Ham.
I love it. Going for Player of the Year. Right, let's move on to Sunday's games. Not as entertaining. I did do back-to-back Super Sunday games, and there was not. So we have kept these to last. But Oba, why don't we kick off with Bournemouth and Chelsea? What were your reflections on this game? Because personally, I actually didn't think Chelsea were too bad, but it was a tighter game than I expected.
I think you got a lot of stick for saying that on socials as well.
I get a lot of stick.
But I was just like, you do get a lot of stick from Chelsea fans.
Praise Chelsea,
you talk about
you get stick.
You talk about Chelsea a lot, so people don't know whether it's sincere or not. Like, I don't know whether you're trying to dig us out or not.
No.
He's playing emotional games with Chelsea fans. He's playing emotional games with Chelsea fans.
Because sometimes I read Doogie's tweets and I'm just like, bro, like, leave us alone. I've deleted that so many times. But you know what it is, yeah? I think a lot of the discourse around Chelsea isn't honest. And I say that because I know for a fact, we're not in a good position in terms of like the games that we played. We had the easiest run of games in the Premier League. I think I saw that graph.
It was Opta did it, yeah.
Yeah, so from that you could say, okay, one win from that is not good enough. Have we been unlucky to a certain extent? I think we have, like in terms of the injuries that we've got with key players. You know, you look at the pre-season teams that we were playing and you could clearly see what Poch was trying to do with the team and the players that he was trying to have on the fringes to come in, and a lot of the players that he wanted to have on the fringes and to learn almost like the way that he wants Chelsea to play, and now having to start and having to, you know, make mistakes as you're playing these games. And people know we've got the youngest squad, or one of the youngest squads in the league. So if you're going to have that squad, you're going to see mistakes. You're going to see people, you know, have a good 20 minutes and then the next 10 minutes is not going to be that great. And you have to be accepting of that. Like, that's why when people are like, Gallagher didn't play well, or Palmer needs to do more, or Mudryk, for example, like these players had little they had like spells in the game where it was like, you know what, I can see something positive. Because I'm a Chelsea fan, obviously, I want more. Like, I want us to score goals, but we've been unlucky in front of goal.
I think you've been
Sterling hitting the crossbar, bouncing out, disallowed.
Such a nice free kick as well.
And then even Palmer coming in, he almost scored as well. Like, we've had the chances, and it's like we've been very unlucky. Yes, you still want Chelsea to be that team where you say, you know what, you're going to go into a game against Bournemouth and you should win, and you do win, if it's a 1-0, 2-0, whatever. But now I think there's like an uncertainty because of the fact that Poch wanted to set the standard, and with the signings and the team that he wanted to make, it's like any club. Like you create a club, and let's say you've got a fresh plate, and you put your starting 11, you're gonna play your strongest 11 and say, okay, this is the standard. Poch hasn't really been able to do that, because when he tries to set standards, the few players that he's doing that with, they've now got injured, and the other players have to replace them, and it's like it's going to be difficult to do that. So I'm accepting of that, and that's where Chelsea is.
I don't think you've been too bad at all. I really don't. I think your performances have been there. It's just unfortunate that not a lot of people have a lot of sympathy for Chelsea, and they are enjoying the fact that the results haven't been good. And that's not speaking from personal perspective. I just genuinely mean people are like, people are hammering you for your bench yesterday. You have a ridiculous amount of injuries.
We have 11 first
It's
team
inevitable that the bench is going to look pretty weak. And you still had Chilwell on it. You know, you still had... Who else came on? I can't even think now. But there was just...
Palmer came on.
Palmer, that was it. Yeah. There was just annoying moments in it where it feels like you're quite close to being quite a good side. Like, I actually thought Mudryk There was an amazing moment in the first half where he dribbles past a few players and then crosses the ball to Gallagher's crotch really hard. And I'm like, it was such an easy pass to make. But it's just that calmness in the final third that he just doesn't have. But Jackson's missing big chances. Sterling's, I think, playing well, but it's just not quite clicking just yet.
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, I know injuries are one thing, but I think there's always going to be that. This is why Poch's job is so hard. Like, this is, this amount of young players at a club like Chelsea, where there is always a magnifying glass on them. That £1 billion spend now is such a headline. Like, there's a lot of pressure on Chelsea.
It is getting boring.
It is boring, but it doesn't make it. It doesn't change the fact that this is a very young squad who are under a lot of pressure as a result of that. Like, at least from a kind of social media perspective, at least from a kind of like general media perspective, like it is. Like the fact remains that this is a really, really tough job for Poch to pull off. Like, it is really, really tough. And I think, but I think in terms of this game, I think Chelsea going forward, looked fine. I think Nicholas Jackson, like, there are clear areas of improvement in his game, but I think overall the first month that we've seen of him is good. Like, I think it is good. But I think, to be honest, I think Chelsea, the bigger worry for Chelsea is the defence. To be honest, like, I think Robert Sanchez,
he was fine.
Yeah, he was good. Like, he got Chelsea out. He prevented a loss. Like, he made a huge save from Ouattara. I think Disasi, who I really like as a defender, I thought he's amazing at Monaco. He's still getting to grips with the league. Clearly, a few mistakes at the back there. I think that's more maybe where my concern would be, because it's a little bit like with we're going back to, like, say, United. It's like the attack doesn't. Like, I think the goals will come, but it's just like
we're not conceding though. Like, we're not conceding. You talk about, like, the game yesterday, for example. Like,
it was an even game against Bournemouth though. Like, Bournemouth could have easily won that game. Chelsea didn't deserve to win it. They didn't deserve to win it.
They had spells in the game where it's like, okay, cool, they're piling on the pressure, but that happens in football. Like, you're not going to be away from home and not have that pressure.
But I think the fact remains is that, like, even with Chelsea, even with the injuries, and I don't think Bournemouth are a bad team at all. I think they've made some good signings, but they're still kind of in transition. They're playing under a new coach with quite a few new players. Like, Chelsea should still be putting in a match-winning performance against Bournemouth. That wasn't the case. Like, Chelsea didn't deserve to win that game.
And that's why I think people aren't being as honest as they can be, because, like I said, if you're looking at a team where you've seen the turnover in players and the youth that have come in, and the fact that, like I said, so many players have been injured, even up until the game. Like, people thought, okay, Caicedo's going to come back from his international game and get straight into the team. Okay, he's injured now, so Leslie has to come in, who played all right.
I thought he was good.
He played all right, but at the same time, this isn't how Poch envisioned his team. So I don't think it's an excuse, but it's just a reality. It's Chelsea's reality. You have that many injuries, you're still, it's hard for you to create an identity when there's so much changing in the squad. So regardless of if it's Bournemouth against Luton or anyone, if you're having that much change in a team where you know the pressure's on, you're not scoring, you still have those issues, going into that game where you've made those changes, it's still going to be difficult to a certain extent. You're not like Brighton. We praise them because they've had the same philosophy, so regardless of who comes in or out, they understand it, and they were able to set the standard. They've set their standard, so you come in and out, you know what's coming. Lamptey, if he's up to scratch, he could start the next game, but he hasn't been playing for time. But now he's at that standard. Chelsea haven't got that yet. So when they do get that, when hopefully everyone comes back injury at the same time in a few weeks, please, then, maybe that will happen.
Also, there's a lot of psychological scars from last year as well. You're coming off the worst season that you've ever had.
6 wins in 2023, bro.
I do. At the start of the season, I took quite a lot of flack for saying that you guys,
come under pressure,
like 6th, 7th would be a great year for Chelsea this year. And the amount of Chelsea fans that were like, "Are you deluded? Like, this is a top 4 squad," and you're like, they're all the same age with very little experience. It was bonkers to predict this side to finish in the top 4.
I think the ownership needs to have patience. The ownership needs to have patience, because
Poch is the right manager, and I think they've signed a lot of very good players. It just needs a bit of time and patience.
But that's the thing. Like, how much, I think Chelsea got tougher games coming up as well.
And November looks horrible.
It's like, if Chelsea aren't in a good position by November, and then Chelsea lose some big games and there are worrying performances, then I still worry. It's just because it's Chelsea, I worry about Poch. Like I think they need to, like Poch needs at least a full season with this squad.
Poch will be
like
fine.
he needs a full season with the squad. But like,
said that about
but the evidence that we've seen from the Bowley ownership,
But this is their appointment.
Is not
like Tuchel wasn't.
Yeah, but Potter was their appointment. And like he wasn't given time.
That was different.
Was it different though?
Nah, it was different. It was different. There's a different energy. That's the thing with managers. There's
the performances are there, whereas Potter wasn't.
There's things that you see.
There was some Potter. Potter had some really good performances.
Not really. He never really had performances where you're like, okay, this is how Potter wants Chelsea to play. Like we've already seen how Potter wants Chelsea to play. Like I've seen it.
He's also had a full summer of like signings as well.
And you see, okay, it looks good. Like even the underlying stats before the Bournemouth game were quite good. Yes, the run was calm, but at the same time, you could say, okay, we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
We're just getting unlucky with injuries. Like, if we're going to be honest, the injuries are shagging us. Like, same with United. That's why I can't be too hard to a certain extent because you've got injuries. Like.
But if it gets to November and United go out of the Champions League groups and are sitting 6th or 7th, then there will be huge pressure on Ten Hag.
Yeah,
and I think, and that's Man United, where actually the ownership have generally been quite patient with managers. Like, at Chelsea, I don't know. I think there are all these mitigating factors about Chelsea's performances or their form at least are completely legitimate. But it's just I do worry because the recent history at Chelsea suggests that managers don't get like that much time.
Potter got a lot more time than he should have got. So from that, I think that Potter will be fine, and I think we'll get the results. Like as soon as the starting, not starting players, but the players that you would predict to be in Chelsea's strongest side are available, I think that we'll be in a position where, some of the players that are starting now don't feel the pressure because it's not easy, bro. You guys have said it. Play for Chelsea at this current stage after last season. It's probably one of the most high-pressured situations to be in as a young player as well. So, I think when the players come back, hopefully everything will be.
I think it'd be so embarrassing for the ownership to sack Poch as well. It just would be such an admission that they're just very trigger happy. Like, it just wouldn't be good at all. Let's briefly touch on Everton Arsenal. 1-0 to Arsenal. Not a brilliant game by any stretch, particularly with one side so below par in Everton. Really, really concerning. Great goal from Trossard. I mean, there's not a loads to talk about in this game. I saw some people talking online that Arsenal aren't as entertaining as last year.
That's so jokes.
I don't think they'll really mind, to be honest. They've had a good start. Considering their level of performance as well, I think they've had a really good start. Don't think they've been quite at it, but get a big win, McCubs.
Yeah, really solid. I mean, especially given their recent form against Everton as well. Lots of fans were probably going into the game thinking that it would be 1-0 to Everton, 85th minute. I don't know, Corey or something. But I think they were just totally dominant. It wasn't a great watch, but I think that was probably more to do with the fact that Everton are so poor. Speaking of managers under pressure, I think Deitch is under pressure.
Really?
I just think new ownership. Everton have not looked good for quite a while now, and I like Sean Dyche as a manager, but that Everton job is a really hard job. And the squad, when we talk about transfer policies having ended up in complete messes, like Everton's squad is just still so mismatched. And I know there are players in that squad who on their day can be game changers, but those days don't really come about enough. There's just no, Beto. I was watching an interview with Beto before the game, and he was talking about how two of his idols growing up were like Eto'o and Lukaku, and so he was kind of going to he kind of it was actually he was really enthused about joining Everton for that reason, kind of growing up watching them, but it's just like
then he got that service.
then he gets that service. It's like Beto's a good striker, and Dan Juma's a good player as well. Like it's not that I don't think it's a championship level squad, but it's so mismatched. And I don't know. I just worry a little bit with new ownership coming in. I know that it's like obviously they have a stake in a lot of clubs, so I don't know how trigger happy they'll be to begin with, and I don't know how much. I mean, thing is, they've got a lot of control, don't they? Is it a 97% stake? 97%. Like it's big. So I don't know exactly how they're going to treat the situation there, but it's like, what is it? 3 losses in a row now at home. Like that's
All 1-0
that's
as well, I think.
that's the makings of like a toxic environment in and around the
They've lost
stadium.
4 of their last 5 at home.
Yeah, and I guess Everton fans will, on the one hand, be happy that
Mashiri's
that Mashiri's gone and that era is over now. But I think there's already there are already concerns over the ownership just because their
record at recent clubs is terrible.
It's not great. It's not great.
Genoa went down afterwards. Hertha Berlin went down afterwards. They've got a stake in Sevilla. It's a small one, but they're doing really bad. Vasco da Gama got relegated as well, who they own.
Gosh.
So it's not great.
And I always, with multi-club ownership, unless it's a very successful unless there's a really successful track record, you do worry a little bit because it's like how much are they say.
Why did he acquire Everton then?
Well, the new stadium's in the works, isn't it? Like I think there's
must back themselves to keep them up.
There's definitely like Everton are a very marketable club as well, but it's just like I don't know how much like time is going to be put into like really building a project there. I'm not really sure.
But
this is all conjecture, but like I do worry a bit for Dutch.
Do you also think the squad is better than the football they're producing?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because I just double checked their starting lineup and I don't think that they've got like the worst squad. Like I think they obviously still would want to make a few more signings to make them like a bit more safer in terms of Premier League experience and like just individual quality, but in terms of their lineup, they've got Onana, Gay, Decore in midfield, Danjuma, McNeil, who I think is all right as a wide man, Ashley Young, Premier League experience, Tarkowski. Like I don't Pickford, like England
goalkeeper.
one.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that they've got the worst squad. I think it just might be difficult to think of the best way to utilize these players. Like when Dyche first came in, obviously he comes in with that. This is my approach, you know what I mean? This is like, I'm doing this, you're going to run, you're going to do this. And it started off being quite calm. But now, I think with the players that they have, it might be suited to a different style of football that isn't working for them. Clearly, it's not working the way they're playing. And just being behind the ball and having to run so much. Like, as a player, you don't want to play that way. Like, realistically, even as a striker better coming to the Premier League, he's not going to want to be that striker where Calvert-Lewin was okay with doing that, like, do you know what I mean? So I think I'm with Mikey. I think he's going to be in a little bit of trouble, but it just depends on how who they think could replace him, and like would they want to come to Everton, and will they have that plan before they get rid of him? Like, because you see sometimes where the managers leave and then they're scrambling for next managers to come in, and in that limbo period it's worse for the team. So they got to think of what they're doing and quickly, because if they carry on in this way, then they will definitely be in that conversation for relegation for the whole season.
Their last few, whenever they've sacked a manager, their last few like periods of trying to find a new manager has just been completely chaotic as well. Exactly. Like 3 or 4 different candidates, everyone getting rejected left, right, centre. But I kind of agree with you guys. I think they should be playing better. They've still got Jack Harrison to come in as well, who is Premier League proven. When he gets going, I think they could be playing better football, but I had them 18th before a ball was kicked. I still think they might finish. I still think they might go down to be honest. It's tricky.
Imagine if Ancelotti hadn't left in 2021.
I know. Sliding doors moment.
It is genuinely mad how
James Rodriguez would still be there.
had that team, and I know he had like players like someone like James Rodriguez, but he just got that team functioning so well. They were like a very decent team. Life comes at you fast.
Life comes at you fast. What a note to finish Monday Vibes on, guys. Life comes at you fast. Hope you guys have enjoyed this week's episode. Get excited for what will it be? We're top 10 tomorrow. There'll be Team Talk returning on Wednesday. We're filming that tomorrow, so it'll be fresh off the bat. Many thanks to Sam Abaski and Michael McCubbin for joining me on Monday Vibes. If you've enjoyed the video, let us know what you made of it in the comment section. Remember to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you later in the week. Peace. Bye.